Welcome to the second edition of Shap's Chat. I'm Dr. Robert Shap, Superintendent of Schools of the Mamaroneck Public Schools System. I'm pleased to be joined today with two exceptional teachers from Hommocks Middle School, Grace Brew and Ron Nobles, and they're both technology teachers. So I have to ask you right off the bat, everywhere you go we hear the word STEM or STEAM, that acronym that we love in education: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So when we think about technology and we think about that acronym, maybe tell us and give us a sense of what you do each day with students in your classrooms at Hommocks Middle School.
Yeah, I think our biggest push when teaching technology is really to make it like project-based learning and problem solving. So, you know, like you hear this word technology and you think, people will say to me something, oh, you're a technology teacher, what does that mean, computers? And, you know, it's so much more than that. So really our class is computer science, it's robotics, it's engineering, it's architecture, and it's all those kind of project-based problem solving, you know, any way we can kind of tie that into real world experiences and technology.
So you say that, and Grace, I guess my question to you, we've heard so much about design thinking, that term and what that actually means. What does that look like in your classroom, for example? How do we take the design principles and introduce it to students in your particular course?
We start right off in 6th grade where we kind of introduce the engineering design process on a very small level where it has multiple steps where they will be working on a project, of course project-based, and they're trying to figure out how to go through that problem. And every year we just kind of expand on the different steps and adding more steps of the engineering process. And the kids really seem to enjoy it, and they apply it to all the projects.
So I know that we have 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders all part of technology. Mm-hmm. So maybe talk about how you differentiate in terms of the area of study. I know, for example, having the opportunity to see your classrooms, that part of your work is with building drones and testing out drones. Mm-hmm. So how does it all come together? What if I was a middle school student today and I had a technology class, what would be the things that I would actually be involved in under this umbrella called STEAM?
Well, yeah, in 6th grade, we're doing some really cool, interesting hands-on projects like building rockets, for example, mm-hmm. and taking the students outside to launch them, and creating air racers that glide across the classroom. But the idea is to give them a kind of a problem and let them work through that design process into creating a real-world application. When they get into 7th grade, for example, with our robotics program, it's really 3 stages. It's design, you have to come up with your own idea for the robot, build that robot, and then program it. So it's such a great real world aspect, right? And then 7th grade, we're also doing some things with like magnetic levitation. So the kids work their way all the way through engineering design process and create their own maglev vehicle and test it and race them, and we know who the fastest one is. But to give them like this real world problem and let them use that design process as they work through it.
And every grade, we also get into computer programming. So although we do work on Scratch in 6th grade, in 7th grade we use Lego programming, and we also do drone programming through Tinker, excuse me. And then in 8th grade we have a computer science program that we also introduce as far as coding.
So one of the things that you mentioned is the application of the real design process. I know that recently our students were really focused on a project that had certainly importance or application to our school system and other students. Maybe you want to talk about that experience.
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the school year last year, Grace and I were kind of sitting down talking about how, we had these 3D printers, the kids are making like really interesting 3D designs. How can we take this to the next level and make it more real world? So everything we do is kind of this real world idea, but sometimes it's a little bit fake, right? Like you now work for a company and this is your job. We're like, how can we really make it something that's going to be, they're solving a real problem. So we started doing this year is we'll go around to teachers, kind of at the beginning of the school year this year. We're like, hey, give us any problem that you have in your classroom, and our kids are going to work their way through the engineering design process and solve it and actually 3D print a real prototype. So one of the ones that was really cool this year was a special ed teacher came to us. She has a student who learns much better through almost like live streaming, right? So you have to look through an iPad screen.
Through assisted technology.
Through assisted technology. And this was just like the perfect one for her. She came down to my classroom and had like a wooden box and like this marker holding an iPad to get it to hold just perfectly. And my students got so involved in it. And they're asking her all kinds of questions, measuring things, going up and over and beyond. And they just came up with really amazing products. And so to this day, she actually has a product that a student, in my classroom developed and it works perfectly. And it's, you know, really that whole real world design and tying everything together and actually solving a problem and making a product that's being used is happening in our school now.
What I really like about the project, and Ron and I see this all the time, is that the students are invested into the work that they're doing. They know that in the long run, someone else will benefit from it. So I feel having that exposure and having that experience is so important for them, because they said, hey, this is something that I helped to do. And I really feel, especially with that class, the whole class was so invested. They were so into it.
So as you're describing what happens in the classroom, and one of the things I think about is this idea that part of success is to fail, right? That the failure, certainly in the design process in the real world, and I'm sure in your classes, provides an opportunity for students to learn, adjust, refine, and move forward. So to what extent, how do kids working on projects, students, kind of navigate that world of challenge, of learn from failures, or what would you say, would you describe your teaching style that allows them to kind of take ownership for their learning?
Yeah, I think that's something we actually talk about a lot, is that school, right, the traditional way school is like, this is the right answer, it's the wrong answer, and that's the end of it. So to get kids to fail is actually very difficult. Like a middle school student is very much like, no, it didn't work, I don't know what to do. And so for us, it's like, we want you to, maybe it doesn't work out perfectly every time, because you learn such better lessons from that. So to be able to kind of do some trial and error and fail and redesign and come back to that idea is so important for students. And I honestly think these real world projects like this, they really wanted to solve these problems for, you know, this student, for example, the project we were just talking about, that it makes them want to redesign. And it didn't work the first time, but I know I can do it. And I just think it's such an important skill in the workplace. And it's a skill that is a little bit foreign to students. Like, they want it to work right away and be done with it.
I also feel that we create a very nurturing environment where it's okay to make mistakes, because that's the only way you're really going to learn and say, hey, I did this and let me apply it differently the next time. And I just feel like we provide that security where it's okay. You fail, how are you going to correct it? And then move on from that. And what do you learn from that?
Right. So, in talking with, in our next segment, we'll have the opportunity to talk to our high school engineering, computer science, and design teachers. This idea that students not only know how to do things, but they need to be able to work together. The idea that, what I would say, the ability to kind of model what's going to happen when they graduate around employment, that being able to get along, to navigate, how do you work as a team? How does that come out in the work that you do in your classrooms?
Yeah, I would say, probably the majority of our projects are, group projects, right? Where the kids are working in teams and they're bouncing ideas off each other, and they have to be able to compromise. And again, it's a skill that is sometimes hard for a middle school age, well, probably even adult age sometimes, right? We struggle with that every once in a while. And we try to tell them that that's so important, especially in engineering and design, to be able to work with different people and get different ideas, and to be able to compromise, and to be able to take people's input and kind of work off of that input.
So as we know that technology is changing at such a rapid pace, and so a few years ago, the idea that creating drones and making them fly would be even part of your curriculum is exciting to know that there's so much interesting opportunity under the umbrella of technology. Where do you see your program going? I know you have a unit on engineering, right, and design. You deal, as you mentioned, with computer science and coding and robotics and drones. What's the next frontier? Anything come to mind?
We're always trying to innovate and trying to keep up with the curve, because technology and students' interests are constantly changing. So we're always looking for new products and projects to do, and just keeping up with them. Right now, I think we were talking just recently today about upgrading our robotics units and trying to get into the new robotics. Because they're kind of they're a little dated, so we're interested in doing that, and also expanding our 3D program and possibly getting into laser cutting stuff like that. So
well, what's interesting, I would say, is that through your work, our students now, through the robotics club, both in the middle school and competitions, our high school robotics team, and our high school underwater robotics team, that there's such a strong interest in really exploring what it means to use, build, and design robotics and robots. So it's exciting. And I think we're interested in supporting your work and being creative and thinking about even basic, skills of soldering, right? Of some of the intricate now, what I would say, high-tech tools relating to the work you're doing around technology. It's exciting.
Yeah, and I think that, to be in a district like Mamaroneck is so important for teachers like us because our class is different, right? And it's a little outside the box. And the district's been so supportive of any idea we come up with. I bet you there's few middle schools in the country that are, students are building their own drones and then programming drones and flying them around the school. And we came to you about, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and to have a district that would right away is like, that sounds amazing. It's just such an advantage to teach a class like ours to be in a district like this that's excited about it. We've had a ton of support from the STEM Alliance. We've had a ton of support from the foundation. So I think that's just been so important. And literally every year, pretty much, we try to say, hey, let's think of a new project that might be a little crazy, and let's just see how it goes. And it's always worked for us.
And I just want to say that it's a great opportunity for all the students. So every single one of those students have an experience with robotics, with drones, whereas they may not have this opportunity outside of school. So we're providing them with an experience that is unique.
Well, I have to say, as we wrap up this segment, that I enjoy visiting your classrooms, that it really is a student-centered environment where students are kind of in charge of their learning. As you mentioned, I do see this idea of project management, of working as a team on a particular goal. But what's nice is that they actually have a product, right? That the learning is synthesized through the 3D prototype or the robot or the programming that comes through making the drone fly. So that there really is a direct connection between what they know, what they do, and the learning that comes through developing some type of project and seeing the end. So I appreciate the work that you do and look forward to continuing this exciting STEM and STEAM work in our district. And thank you very much for taking the time to just kind of give us a sense of what happens in a middle school technology classroom every day at Hommocks Middle School. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome back to the second half of our second episode of Shap's Chat. I'm pleased to be joined by two Mamaroneck High School teachers, Dr. Jigar Jadav, computer science teacher, and James Love, our engineering teacher. So thank you for being here. So let's talk technology and design thinking and STEM. Maybe you can start by at least giving some background on the computer science program in high school, at the high school, and similarly engineering. So Jigar, tell us about your program.
Sure. So we started the computer science program at Mamaroneck High School 7 years ago. And I remember starting out with one class, and the program since then has grown into like over 10 sections of computer science courses. We started out with just Computer Science 1 introductory course. And this year we've gone from one course, which was just introductory course, to then AP course, and then second year course. And now we also have collaborative design, which is a fourth year course, which is what we're piloting right now.
So when we talk about computer science and this idea of coding, I know that it's beyond just a traditional how-to course, because I know in our conversation many of your students are doing projects that have applications or solutions to not only community needs, but have been used in industry as well. So maybe you can talk about the format and what students are actually doing, developing.
Sure. So, I'm very lucky to be able to teach the class however I want, because I've designed the curriculum and it gives me a lot of flexibility. So to give you an idea, like some of the projects that we've done, they start out with like students' interest. So last year one of my students had this idea of creating a cryptocurrency, and I had no background in cryptocurrency or the trading of cryptocurrencies in general. And so, but at the end, it became this really fun project that we developed our own cryptocurrency in the class, and then students were trading using their digital wallets. A lot of these projects, they don't necessarily happen to be the same every year because students change, students' interests change, for example. So like some of the projects that we're doing right now, they involve working with, let's say, the Marine Education Center, working with, even within the school, like Dr. Hess, who does a special education program, and Transition Academy. So these are some of the projects that are outside of the classroom. So students what are they learning? They're applying in a real world setting and learning the soft skills that go with project development, and sort of interacting with clients.
And similarly, Jim, I know that in your engineering program, and maybe you can talk about the various courses you offer, students are really applying that knowledge in real ways as well.
Sure. So we really went through the reboot of our program about 4 years ago, and right now we have a pretty full slate of courses that that really bring that really, I guess, build on what the students learn in the middle school. And really move it into, and advance their skills. We do a lot of fabrication. So the intro course has a lot of projects that the students are always working together in teams. So this collaborative design idea is starting really early in their high school years. And they get the chance to sort of specialize as different roles within the team. And it's very much focused on the engineering design process and like this think like an engineer sort of concept where we have these problems or challenges and we try to find creative solutions sort of and build around that. And so that's the intro course. And then we have an engineering design and modeling course, which is a little more focused on CAD work, and a project management course, which is kind of like the arc of the project and what it means to sort of have simultaneous things running at the same time and how to manage projects like that.
And I know that many of your students are involved in a lot of community-based activities, STEMtastic,
Sure.
and building and helping organizing that, the Standing Free Library, so designing the libraries
Yep.
and seeing solutions that will support the town in general, the community. So it's really, again, applying those skills to real-world situations.
Yeah, and much like Jigger said, it doesn't stay the same from year to year, so it changes a lot, and it's really very dynamic based on what the students really want. The most consistent thing has been the robotics program that we run with the competitions, but which is fantastic, the FTC and the Mate Robotics, but beyond that, it's really with the students' ideas and trying to push our work out, quote unquote, to the real world and to have some impact beyond the classroom. And that's really what validates a lot of our work, I feel.
So that kind of leads me to this thing called collaborative design. So for our community members watching, what is collaborative design and what are the tenets of the course itself? And maybe describe the experience from the students' perspective this year in terms of this collaborative teaching experience that also has our design teacher, Gwen Betancourt, part of this unique program for seniors and juniors.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll start. I mean, it's something that we've been thinking about for years. Jigger and I, we're neighbors in the classroom, and so we get to talk a lot and brainstorm and think like, curriculum-wise. And it's always something that we've wanted to do is bring a lot of our work together because there's no boundaries, and there shouldn't be, it shouldn't be just computer science or engineering. And we were just trying to find ways to sort of make that happen together. And of course, the design aspect of it is really important. And we finally got that to happen. And so essentially what we have is 3 courses that were traditionally separate sort of coming together and leveraging the skills of 3 fantastic teachers, or 2 fantastic teachers and myself. And doing awesome things with that. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about some of the projects and some of
Yeah, so the idea of this, having these disciplines work in silos, right? That's not how the real world operates, right? So, we're using the Stanford's D-School model and the IDEO model, the idea that let's bring, engineers, computer scientists, and designers together and let them build and create things. So we're really facilitating, these projects that students are creating solutions for. So for example, like the first project we did was the backpack project, redesigning the backpack. So it was a very short project, and students had to really think like and empathize with the target audience, which it's themselves, right, to some degree for some of the students. So we wanted to start out something that they can really connect with instantly. And then so they did, and they had a short period of time. It was a short activity. And then the idea was to scale that to a bigger project over time. And then now they're working on, so our second project was actually this game design for public spaces, which is what we had for our art show, which was a great success. And it was fantastic to see students designing the actual product and then engineers building it and then the computer scientists programming it to have this entire system come to life.
So in many respects, you're replicating what students will do in the real world as engineers, as computer scientists, as designers as well. And certainly what I've appreciated from afar is understanding the end user, whether you're solving a problem, a human design problem, or meeting a need that is an unmet need in our community. So how do the kids experience this? Because this is an atypical learning experience. Project management, having deadlines, building prototypes that may fail. What is the essence of their experience relative to what the takeaways are that will strengthen their world as learners, but also propel them to be successful beyond school?
I mean, I think it's really challenging for the students. I think that it's really difficult to get put into that environment and really be forced to seek out paths and answers that aren't clearly defined. And I know as an instructor in the course, it's difficult for us too, I think. I think it's pretty challenging to kind of take our reins off a little bit and let the kids sort of, do and find their own creative space and guide them sort of along the way. And there's the share of failure too. I mean, we go into projects and students don't have every single thing that they need to succeed in that project. And they're actually required to sort of go out and figure out what those things are and try to acquire those skills along the way, because it's impossible, like working on a project of such varied things that we've been doing, to know everything about everything before you go into a project. That's just not realistic, right? And so I think for sometimes the first time, the students are really seeing that, wait a minute, I don't know how to do this, but I need that to get this done. How do I get those skills? And then we sort of consult them and mentor with them, and we guide them through that process. But it's definitely not a traditional sort of approach to things.
And I think from computer science, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from computer science and engineering perspective, we're always about facts and requirements. And when we're presented with open-ended problem, that can be daunting. And we've seen that with our students where, well, what do you mean there's no one specific answer? And now we're looking at an open-ended solution, and that may result in failure. But I think what's important, which I think will take time for students to learn, and I think for you and for adults, your context or your relationship to failure has to change. You don't have to see it as a personal failure, but it's an opportunity to grow and learn from this experience and refactor your design, refactor your prototype, go back to the drawing board. Because you're not going to come up with a successful product on the first iteration. I mean that just doesn't happen in the real world. But then this is students' context or their relationship with failure isn't quite as developed, so to speak. So I think that's kind of nice to see that they're faced with challenges.
So as we wrap up and think about the next few years, the one question I have, as you hear from our graduates who are pursuing engineering and computer science, do they feel well prepared and really confident in their knowledge to take it to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I have students visiting all the time, and I had 2 students that stopped by, and I just kind of put them on the spot to be my guest speakers. And Ryan Wong, who's at Carnegie Mellon, he shared his experience, what it's like working at that level where they're doing majority of the work outside of the class. And it's just trial and error, and you're learning from it. Again, the context to failure, your relationship to failure is important there. And then Lucy, who was in my computer science program, she said the same thing. She was like, a lot of what we do at Columbia is the same idea. So I think that's an important thing.
So it's interesting that you are, in some ways, grounding our students in the knowledge and experience that will propel them to be successful as students, both in college, but beyond in the world of work. And what's exciting from my perspective as superintendent is to know that students are doing real work at the level of secondary school that has applications beyond the school walls and is really connected to the broader society. So I congratulate you. I'm looking to have you come back in the future to talk about really the growth of this program over time, and thinking about how we now take some of these principles into the middle school and the elementary, so we're preparing the next generation of problem solvers here in Mamaroneck. So thank you very much. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was great.